Hello and goedendag mijn vrienden. I'm Peter and here I'm telling you stories about the most interesting European cars of the 80s and 90s. Today we are talking about a car that completely changed the look and perception of Volvo cars in the middle of the 90s, the Volvo C70. But before we start, please subscribe to my channel. We almost made it to 1000 subscribers and it's very important to get there, because YouTube algorithms begin showing the channel to many more viewers once it hits the threshold. So let's get there together. And if you already subscribed, thank you so much. Now let's get back to the car. The first generation of the Volvo C70 was produced from 1996 to 2002 for the coupe version, and from 1996 to 2005 for the convertible, with a small facelift in 2002. The second generation was produced from 2006 to 2013, but today we're talking about the first generation only, because this is a channel about cars of the 80s and 90s. About 72,000 cars of the first generation were sold worldwide, including 26,000 coupes and 46,000 convertibles. About half of the convertibles were sold in the United States, but most of the coupes were sold in Europe. The C70 changed a lot for Volvo. For 30 years before its appearance, starting from 1966 and the Volvo 140 series, Volvo was mostly known for boxy rear-wheel driven cars, famous for their reliability and great safety for its time, but notorious for being rather boring. There were exceptions in that line, like the 340 series. That technically was not a Volvo development, but a product of DAF in the Netherlands. And a very interesting Volvo 480, which I have another video about. But they didn't influence the design of the whole Volvo line, and the C70 did. The C70 was built on the platform of a large boxy Volvo 850, as well as its siblings, the sedan Volvo S70 and the wagon Volvo V70. But while the S70 and V70 in general continued the boxy styling of previous cars with some roundish angles of the front part, the C70 was completely different bumper to bumper. It is a common belief that the styling of Volvo changed revolutionary in 1998 with the appearance of the S80. But actually it happened 2 years before, when the C70 came to the market. The C70 was one giant leap for Volvo. This was the first mass-produced convertible of Volvo for decades. Even a previous convertible prototype, the 262C Solaire, made in the quantity of only 5 cars, was built 17 years ago in 1981. The same for coupes. The already mentioned 480 was technically more a 3-door hatchback than a coupe, and the 262C, made in 1977 together with Bertone, was arguably a 2-door sedan rather than a coupe. So, the previous undoubtful coupe of Volvo was the glorious P1800, produced from 1961 to 1973. The design of the C70 was developed by Ian Callum, Peter Horbury, and José Luis Díaz de la Vega. Ian Callum is a British car designer who worked on many great cars, including the Aston Martin DB7, which I have another video about. Peter Horbury, Volvo's design chief from 1991 to 2002, was behind the design revolution of Volvo. By the way, he was also one of the designers of the Volvo 480 before. And José Luis Díaz de la Vega is a Mexican-born designer who previously worked with British Leyland, Talbot, Peugeot Citroën, Ford and Mazda. He was in charge of all Volvo interiors since 1993, and was the chief designer and director of strategic design of Volvo between 2002 and 2009. The chassis of the C70 was engineered together with TWR, a British racing and engineering company founded by Tom Walkinshaw, a famous racer, race team manager, and a co-creator of such interesting cars like the Jaguar XJ220, Jaguar XJR15, Aston Martin DB7, and many more. So Volvo involved a lot of great minds in creating this car, and this brought really interesting results. According to Peter Horbury, the main internal design idea behind the C70 was to keep the toy and throw away the box. He said, quote, "Our vision was to design a convertible that would meet the needs of a family of 4, looking for comfortable blue sky motoring in a vehicle also providing stylish looks, performance, and faultless driving and road holding," unquote. And I should say that this goal was completely achieved. The car looked very modern and beautiful, and still was very comfortable and safe, as expected by Volvo customers. And speaking of beauty, this video is sponsored by my wife, Yulia Nikonova. She is a professional artist and she paints beautiful landscapes. If you are looking for a unique gift, or you want to add a beautiful decoration to your home and support this channel at the same time, please take a look at her website yuliaarts.com. I will leave the link in the description to this video below. And we're getting back to the car. The C70 was a relatively large car, being built on the updated 850 platform. The length was 472 cm or 105 inches, and the width was 182 cm or 72 inches. It was the same size as the sedan S70 and wagon V70. So there was enough place for 4 people inside, and even tall passengers could comfortably sit on the rear row of seats. Getting in and out of the rear seats in the coupe version could be a little challenging due to limited door openings, but once you get there, you are fine. And all the seats were very comfortable with a lot of adjustments for the front ones. The coupes had a rather spacious trunk. The trunk space of the convertible was smaller due to the place for the folded convertible top, but still was enough for everyday needs. You could even transport a set of skis in the trunk due to the special opening with a built-in bag hidden behind the armrest of the rear seats. The exterior was very unusual for Volvo at that time, and it was nice and beautiful. The front part in general repeated the fronts of the S70 and V70, but the rear part went much further with the unboxing, and its lines were smooth, roundish, and attractive. Altogether, the design was surprisingly balanced and integral. It was distinctive, but at the same time, it belonged to Volvo and the expectations of its customers. When you looked at the Volvo 480, you might think, what the car is this? But at the first look of the C70 you understood, this is a Volvo. A very different Volvo, but it is undoubtedly a Volvo. The convertible top was fully powered and automatic, so you didn't have to manually latch and unlatch it like in many other cars of that time. You just needed to press one button and the service did all the work for you. The car was filled with modern electronics helping you to comfortably and safely spend your time inside it. It had an advanced trip computer showing you a lot of information. And many cars had a very good sound system with 12 high-end speakers, a Dolby surround system and a built-in CD changer for 3 CDs. And of course it was safe. It was a Volvo after all. So you had a very strong safety cage built into the body around the passenger compartment with a boron steel reinforced A-pillars and sophisticated zones of controlled deformation. And naturally a lot of front and side airbags, ABS and a stability control system. The convertibles had hidden safety bars that automatically popped up behind the rear seats in case of a rollover to prevent damage to the passengers. That system allowed Volvo to make the top fully open and uninterrupted, avoiding stationary anti-roll safety bars. The first generation of the Volvo C70 had several engines during its production. All of them were inline 5-cylinder gasoline engines with 4 valves per cylinder. The first one, available from the start of sales, was a 2.4-liter naturally aspirated fuel-injected engine that produced 168 horsepower. That wasn't very much for a rather heavy car. With this engine, the car had a top speed of 220 km or 137 miles per hour and 0 to 60 miles per hour in 9.3 seconds. The second engine available from the start was a 2.4-liter engine with a low-pressure turbine, which produced 190 horsepower, a top speed of 230 km or 144 miles and 0 to 60 in 7.8 seconds for manual cars and 8.2 seconds for automatic ones. And the third initially available engine was a 2.3-liter T5 engine with a high-pressure turbo, 237 horses, a top speed of 250 km or 155 miles per hour, and 0 to 60 in 6.9 seconds or 7.2 seconds for the automatic version. In 2000, the naturally aspirated engine was dropped and replaced with a 2-liter turbo engine with 161 horsepower, a top speed of 210 km or 131 miles per hour, and 0 to 60 in 10.3 seconds. Both initial turbo engines received updates in 2002, when the coupe was discontinued and the convertible received a facelift. The 2.4 low-pressure turbo engine received 197 horses instead of 190, which didn't actually reflect in changes in the performance. and the T5 high-pressure turbo engine gained 242 horny ponies instead of 237, but the performance actually decreased a little. 240 km or 150 miles per hour instead of 250 and 155 accordingly, and 0 to 60 miles per hour in 7.5 seconds instead of 6.9. The Volvo C70 was available either with a 5-speed manual transmission made by Volvo or with 4-speed or 5-speed automatic transmissions produced by Japanese company Aisin, which is a part of Toyota Group. The automatic gearboxes were not the fastest ones on the planet, but they were really reliable even in high-mileage cars, which was completely in line with the philosophy of Volvo. But what about the driving experience? The driving experience was very positive, but maybe not very exciting. The C70 in both bodies was a relatively fast, very comfortable and predictable car. The dynamics of the C70 was comparable with the regular versions of its main GT competitors, such as the Mercedes-Benz SL, BMW E46, Saab 9-3 or Peugeot 406 Coupe. But performance versions of Mercedes-Benz and BMW were faster than Volvo. At the same time, the C70 was cheaper. So, for those who wanted a premium trimmed coupe or convertible at the end of the 90s, the C70 was a logical, balanced choice. You got all you needed for a good price, especially considering that the Volvo was very reliable and safe, and the car was very pleasant to drive on straight high-speed highways. This made the C70 rather popular in the United States, and in general the sales of the C70 were rather good for such a niche GT car. At the same time, active maneuvering wasn't that convenient. The car was large, long and heavy. Despite all efforts of TWR, the handling of the C70 was far from the performance of a racing car. The C70 was lazy in turns, and you could feel all its weight in corners. In addition, the convertible version of the C70 didn't have enough body strength and rigidity, and this made it a little shaky and unstable on uneven bumpy roads and in sharp turns. Nothing dangerous, but this decreased the enjoyment of driving. The C70 never actually was a performance car, but if you didn't expect it to be a Swedish Ferrari, you would enjoy the C70 very much. Anyway, it was a very elegant, beautiful, comfortable and capable car that gave its driver enough fun. The old, boxy Volvos of the 100, 200 and 700 series were awesome cars that had their own sharp and well-deserved great reputation. And they still gain a lot of fans even now. The Volvo C70 was a giant step from them, and some see it as a betrayal of old Volvo traditions. But this was the beginning of a new era for Volvo, when reliability, comfort and safety finally met modern design and beauty. And the C70 was the first Volvo car where the new design concepts were fully applied. We still see some of those details in the design of modern Volvos. So, maybe it wasn't the most significant car for humanity and automotive history, but it was a very important milestone for Volvo. The Volvo C70 of the first generation was sold in the United States during its production. 80% of cars sold in America were convertibles, and only 20% were coupes. All cars officially sold in the US had automatic transmissions. So, if you'd like to buy a convertible automatic C70 in the US, it's possible to find a good one in the local market. But if you want something special, like a coupe with a T5 high-pressure turbo engine and manual transmission, you will have to look for it in Europe. A large part of those cars were produced before 1999, and they are older than 25 years now, so you can legally import them to the United States. The C70s were reliable cars, but many of them now have many hundred miles on the clock. It's not a wonder to see a car with over 400,000 kilometers or 250,000 miles still running and running well. But the cars with this mileage inevitably will have some issues, particularly with electronic components. The parts for the C70 may be expensive, so if you are buying one of those cars, try to find one in good condition and with a relatively low mileage. In the US, a good C70 of the first generation goes now from $4,000 to $9,000, which looks like a rather reasonable price. In Europe, the current prices are from €2,000, with good examples from 4,000 to 15,000 euros, and T5 coupes from 7,000 to 13,000 euros. Well, thank you very much for watching. If you owned or drove a Volvo C70, please tell me your personal impressions in the comments below. It's always so heartwarming to learn real-life stories from the owners of cars. And if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. New interesting stories are coming soon. Heel erg bedankt, mijn vrienden, and see you next time.